Good morning, respected tutor Steffi and dear classmates. My name is Brandon Sarria. Today, it's an honor for me to present the final results of my research project for this course. The title of my study is Analyzing the Impact of Task Based Language Teaching (TBLT) on ninth grade students' oral fluency. So, throughout this presentation, I will walk you through the entire journey of this research. We will explore how a critical problem in our classrooms was identified, the theoretical framework that guided the intervention, and most importantly, how we can transform the way of teenagers experience English language learning in a public school setting. Thank you for being here today. So, let's begin by understanding the context and the problem. Currently, English teaching has shifted towards communicated approaches. However, the reality inside many Colombian classrooms is quite different. Because, for example, this research is situated in a public high school located in Bello, Antioquia. Like many public institutions, the English classes here are characterized by traditional, grammar focused instruction. So, the core issue is that I observed was a clear paradox. For example, these ninth grade students clearly and actually possess a basic understanding of English grammar on paper. They can fill out worksheets and pass reading exams, but it comes to oral fluency, so there is a massive wall. When asked to speak out loud, they experience levels of anxiety, high levels of anxiety, so frustration also, and an overwhelming fear of peer judgment. So traditional translation methods simply do not provide them with real communicative tools. This led me to formulate the following research question. How can the implementation of task based language teaching (TBLT) workshops improve oral fluency and speaking confidence in ninth grade students? So, teacher, to answer this question, I established one general objective and three specific ones. The general objective of this study was to analyze how the implementation of the TBLT workshops improve oral fluency and speaking confidence in this specific group of the ninth grade students. So, to achieve this, the first specific objective was to explore the students' current feelings of anxiety regarding their oral participation, and I needed to understand their fears first. So, the second objective was to implement interactive, meaning focused TBRT activities that encouraged peer collaboration. Finally, the third objective was to describe the actual changes in their speaking fluency and self confidence after participating in these workshops. To understand and solve this problem, I grounded my research on solid theoretical foundations. First, I relied on Lev Vygotsky's theory of socio-constructivism. Vygotsky teaches us that learning is fundamentally a social process. For example, teenagers especially need social scaffold, so they learn best when they interact, for example, with their peers to negotiate meaning rather than just listening patiently to a teacher. Secondly, I integrated Stephen Krashen's affecting filtered hypothesis. For example, Krashes states that if a student is anxious, stressed, or afraid of making mistakes, their affective filter goes up and language acquisition is completely broken and blocked. So finally, I aligned these concepts with the pedagogical principles of task based language teaching, TBLT, supported by authors like Ellis and also, for example, the TBL process that if we give students a collaborative communicative goal, they focus on the message rather than the grammar, naturally lowering their anxiety. So, teacher, moving on the methodology, this study was designed under a qualitative approach because my main goal was to understand the human emotions, behaviors, and communicative progress. Specifically, I used an action research design. So, this allowed me to intervene directly on the classroom, so, and I could observe the changes in my 30 ninth grade participants. So, to collect the data, I used two main instruments: field diaries to capture my direct participant observation during the workshops, and semi-structured interviews to capture the students' own voices. So, for example, for the data analysis, I employed grounded theory supported by Atlas, TI, software. So moving on from opening coding to actual coding to find emerging categories. To ensure the academic rigor and credibility of this process, I applied methodological and data triangulation, cross verifying my field notes with the students' interview transcripts, so to significantly reduce any research bias. This brings us to the most rewarding part: the results. The data revealed three main thematic categories. Category 1 is the reduction of speaking anxiety. The implementation of TBLT radically changed the classroom atmosphere. The students reported that working in small groups eliminated the fear of having everyone study at them. So the tense silence was replaced by relaxed body language. Category 2 is the role of peer interaction. The task forced them to collaborate instead of waiting for the teacher to correct them. They helped each other find the right words. They used gestures and peer support to achieve the goals, providing that collaborative scaffolding works in real time. The category 3 is the improvement in oral fluency. Because the pressure of perfect grammar was removed, their hesitation pauses became much shorter. They were willing to take risks, making themselves understood in English, which directly boosts their spontaneous speech. When we discuss these findings in light of the theory, the connections are undeniable. The results empirically confirm Krashen's affective filter hypothesis. By removing immediate teacher correction and shifting to meaning focused tasks, the student's affective filter was successfully lowered. So, furthermore, the strong reliance on peer support in classroom provides clear evidence for Vygotsky's socio-constructivism. We observe a significant pedagogical shift. TBLT transforms the classroom from a stressful evaluation zone into a safe, collaborative learning environment where making mistakes is just normal part of communication. To conclude, this research demonstrates that task-based language teaching is highly effective methodological strategy for ninth graders. It successfully dismantles the ancient barriers created by traditional teaching and empowers teenagers to finally use the English language as a real, confident, communicative tool. Of course, this study he has limitations and such as sample size and cross-sectional time frame. Therefore, for future practice, I recommended that English teachers implement TBLT across a longitudinal time frame, perhaps an entire academic year, to observe long-term retention. Additionally, integrating mobile technology into these workshops could make the task more engaging for this generation. Here we have the core reference that supported this study, highlighting the foundational works of Ellis, Krashen, and Vygotsky, which were pivotal for the theoretical framework and the methodological design. So, thank you very much for your time and your attention, dear teacher, for sharing this learning process with me. And I am open for any questions or feedback. Thank you so much, and goodbye.